Hey, we look at the defensive line, the new special teams coordinator, and we also preview the baseball season. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Thanks for joining us.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for joining us. Today, we are going to go over the defensive line room and explain why we have plenty of depth and we don't need to assign a transfer portal player. Also, we will look at the new special teams coordinator. Jeremy Springer will tell you where he came from and what that exactly means, maybe. But he is a rising star in the coaching profession. And finally, we will look at baseball with the opening game coming Friday against Charleston Southern against the Buccaneers. We will look at the Ole Miss Rebels baseball team, a team that we all kind of expect to hit really well. We're kind of curious to see how they pitch it, but Derek Diamond will take the hill Friday morning. But first, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Also, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so we will start out with the defensive line, and I am very bullish on this defensive line. And if you listen to shows in the past, you know that I am of the opinion that the 3-2-6 is going nowhere. We're recruiting for it. This is what we do now. This isn't a passing fad. Everybody asks, are we going to do this? No, we're not. We don't recruit for that. If you play the system you recruit for, or you end up with an interim class where you just justify bad things happening. You recruit to your system. These people have been recruiting to the 3-2-6 ever since they put in the 3-2-6. Period. Isheem Young didn't come here to play a different style defense. Ole Miss is going to run the same defense they've always run. My theory on Chris Kiffin is, besides the recruiting, that when he saw that the defense really wasn't his to control and that the 3-2-6 was here to stay, he kind of bailed there. He's a four-man guy. All through the NFL, they don't run a defense like this. So as it gets skedaddled. So Chris Partridge is going to take the lead role in that. Ole Miss is going to recruit somebody that replaces Chris Kiffin, and of my opinion, needs to be somebody from the John Haycock tree or the Barry Odom tree, something like that, for the 3-2-6. So the defensive line, you have Cedric Johnson, Katie Hill coming back. So everybody looks at that and they get all nervous. Well, let's look at the number of people that actually played. You also have Tywone Malone. You have the transfer in of J.J. Pegues. You have Xavier. I forgot his last name. Sorry about that. Xavier Harris, I believe. The kid from Germantown coming in as a backup nose guard. You have Isaiah Iton and Jamon Gordon coming back as well. You have the return of Brandon Mack and the deployment of Jack Brown into the defensive line. The defensive line is 3 deep at this point. So don't let anybody tell you about depth and everything that's going down and the way they think football is played. The defensive line is in a good place the way it is. I expect Cedric Johnson to really kind of make a name for himself. When Ole Miss needs to go big, you'll see Tywone Malone and J.J. Pegues on the defensive end with like Xavier Harris or Katie Hill. Katie Hill by the end of the year was a picture-perfect nose guard in that role. He was occupying blockers. He really came on. You'll never see it in the stat line, but his work was very, very appreciated. But in doing that, you can see how they want to play. They want to pitch in from time to time, and they can really affect running teams. They developed over the course, like after Alabama played basically murder ball against them, and they gave up a ton of yards against Arkansas. You saw at the end of the year they really started to come on. Now, part of that was the addition of Jake Springer. Whenever he came back, the defense became much more versatile than it was. Now, with Isheem Young and the guys in position, they've recruited for players to do that in the future. I'm not worried about the defensive line even in a little bit. I'm not worried about the defense, honestly, going into the season. And whenever we look at the linebacker and the defensive backs, you'll see why. Now, I'm looking at probably going to divide the defensive backs up into two positions. You got the back normal secondary that you think of, and you have the box safeties. That's how I'm probably going to break that down. But the defensive line is in a really good spot. It really is. And everybody's going to look at Otis getting away and going to Alabama and the edge rusher going to Mississippi State as players that missed. Too often, fans look at what they could have had without an ounce of projection ability and everything. Just what they've been told about what this player is going to be in 3 years. And they view that as a terrible loss. You'll hear that term a lot, a loss. There's not a loss in recruiting. There's not. Let's say, even if Arch Manning goes somewhere else, that's not a loss because you never had them. And it's just a way to build up drama in the recruiting cycle. If you had somebody, if they were committed and in the boat, and then on signing day went to another school, yeah, that was probably a loss. But if they never commit to you, they're not a loss. That's like being upset because a girl that you never asked out is going out with somebody else. It's not like that. But so don't look at players that didn't go to Ole Miss. Look at what we have on campus. We have a class that is like 30 deep in 4 stars and is going to go up. It is the most talented group of players Ole Miss has ever signed. Period. Tyler Siskey and Matt Luke started it in 2019. Big part of that last Sugar Bowl was the 2019 class. And the transfer portal, Lane Kiffin has built it up and built it up and built it up. And now with the NIL coming into focus, they look to be ready to take off in recruiting for high school players. So keep an eye on that. It looks like this could happen. The defensive line, like I said, is in a good place. But don't go down the road of players that got away. If you do that, it's like watching wrestling, watching Days of Our Lives. It's drama for the sake of drama, and it doesn't really do you any good because any player that's being recruited, even Arch Manning or the kid from California playing quarterback, they're still a projection. Now, the projection's probably pretty good because everybody can walk out and see what a 5-star player looks like, but it's still a projection. It is what it is. So, concentrate on what you have. That's my advice to you. Football might be over for the season, but basketball is in full steam for pro and college hoops. From the latest odds, totals, and player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, right to the Olympics coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, in the first segment, we talked about the defensive line. And remember, on this podcast, we are constantly going to talk football. We're going to talk football year-round, and we're also going to cover other stuff. But football is going to get at least a segment every show. So don't worry about tuning in and not hearing what you want to hear because Ole Miss, as we've seen, and as the numbers dictate on this channel, is an 80% football school. So they want to know what's going on with football. And now with the transfer portal, we can talk about it all the time. So it's pretty great. Also, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are available wherever you get your podcast. So that is really cool about that. Also, hit us up on YouTube. Do us a favor and subscribe. Hit the bell and give the video an update as well. So let's look at this real quick. Ole Miss has zeroed in on Jeremy Springer, and as he's expected to become the Ole Miss's new special teams coordinator. Before his time at Marshall, Springer spent 3 seasons at Arizona coaching special teams. He coached in the SEC at A&M before that. This is what you need to know about Jeremy Springer. You can read that right there and tell that he's a Kevin Sumlin guy. He traveled with Kevin Sumlin from Texas A&M to Arizona, so he's on that staff. And Kevin Sumlin, for all that you want to poo-poo on his A&M tenure, and there's able to do that, but they signed a 4 or 5-star quarterback nearly every year. They recruited their butt off. And because of that, this is probably a pretty good hire because he's going to be able to recruit. Because the dynamics of coaching have changed. They just have over the year. They've changed. It used to be you would look for 9 well-balanced guys to coach your position groups. Good recruiters, good coaches, they needed to do X's and O's. Now in the age of analysts and NIL and everything like that, the 10 on-field coaches are essentially 80% recruiting and 20% being able to relay what analysts come up with. Because the football wonks are back in the analyst room. That's what you don't know. So whenever you see these guys and everybody looks at Ole Miss's staff and it's like, oh, that guy's 28 years old or that guy's 30 years old. It's because recruiting is the lion's share of this job. You need guys high energy. You need guys that would be able to recruit and do what needs to be done. If you're an old guy that wants to be an X's and O's wonk, you can catch those guys in the analyst room, period. And I think Jeremy Springer, especially the special teams coach, that and the tight ends coach are the 2 recruiters on your staff, maybe a little wide receivers, like the emphasis on recruiting, even in the old style. You would have X's and O's wonks at the coordinator positions. You would have an experienced X's and O's guys at the offensive line coach, maybe the defensive line coach, and then positions like wide receiver, tight end, stuff like that would be your recruiting guys. Well, now, that isn't the case, and youth is served everywhere, and the X's and O's guys are going back in the analyst room. So we will see who gets hired as the linebackers coach / co-defensive coordinator. I do expect that to happen, that transition, because the way they have the co's set up on the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator's room is basically an internship, a mentorship into the way we do things. Bring your ideas and do what you need to do, but here's the parameters that you need to fit in. And we're going to hire you based on that, and then we're going to promote you and put you in that position on your intellectual knowledge of what's going on within that system. So, obviously, Lane Kiffin is committed to the 3-2-6. DJ Durkin installed it. He got out of here because that probably wasn't his defense. That's not what he's known for. That's not what he does. But this is a Lane Kiffin joint. Chris Partridge puts it in, sees how it runs, and you're going to have a number 2 on that defensive side of the ball that when Partridge moves on, which may be after this season, I mean, don't freak out about that. They're going to hire recruiters, but it's going to be a recruiter that has a little bit of knowledge and up and coming guy to call that defense and to run that defense. Now, here's one problem, and I'll leave you with this when it comes to the defensive coordinator. They're doing the co-defensive coordinator thing because Lane Kiffin, after Chris Kiffin got the show cause at Florida Atlantic and they hired somebody, they didn't make a good hire in year 2. And as a result, Florida Atlantic that year went 5-6. That's sandwiched in between 10-1 seasons because they fired that defensive coordinator immediately. That's one thing about Lane Kiffin that you see. He's quick. He's quick to react. He is kind of interesting to see in the hiring and firing platforms exactly how he operates. Really refreshing. Probably really, really honest. But I expect him to make a good hire. He's shown every reason to make a good hire. All of his examples are good hires. So I don't think anybody should really stress at all about a coach leaving because at the end of the day, assistant coaches on the field are recruiters and relayers of the X's and O knowledge back in the analyst room. That's the way college football works now. Now they know football, they know what they do, they bring their own ideas. I'm not saying they're robots. I'm saying generally you have your X's and O's guys and you have your recruiters. The recruiters on the field have to be able to relay information. They have to be able to hear it from their own chosen analyst. So basically you have 2 position coaches each group, an analyst and a recruiter. and that analyst relays to the recruiter to relay to the players exactly how to do stuff because they're allowed to work on the field. It's just a loophole in the rules. It's just the way it works out. This is the time of year when I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. This year I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right. Thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, and they're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors like yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included 100% real chocolate. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and all new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious and new flavors coming out all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It'll be delicious and it'll be good for you. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first and then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every time. So here's your offer. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, welcome back to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Right here, I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Here, I am joined by Derek Vandygriff to talk a little bit of Ole Miss baseball. But before we get started on that, I do want to say thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell for notifications that new videos are posted. And, of course, give us an upvote on the video. Derek, how you doing today?
Oh, not bad. How about yourself?
Just getting ready for first pitch at the end of this week.
That's right. Ready for it to get good.
So, okay, we'll jump right into it. And the thing, everybody is getting all these roster breakdowns and everybody deep diving to what's going on with Ole Miss baseball. My thought is, like, who is the one player you're expecting to stand out this year over the others?
Well, offensively, I think you got to look at Jacob Gonzalez and Tim Elko, obviously. Not Mike Elko, by the way. It is.
Kara.
Yeah. Tim was having an incredible year last year before he tore his ACL. Possibly the best in the country the way he was going. I mean, everything he saw. And Jacob Gonzalez obviously won Freshman of the Year, so he was incredible. Had 12 home runs, I think it was. Division I baseball Freshman of the Year. I think he's primed to have a real good year and playing a prime position at shortstop too. Obviously helps that.
Yeah, he is the lone member, I believe, of the All-SEC team, first team, Jacob Gonzalez. We have a few guys second team, but he got first team, and there's going to be whispers, I think, as the year goes on for Player of the Year for him. But talking about Tim Elko, not Mike Elko, Kara, Tim Elko, he hit 17 home runs last year. That's like 3 shy of the school record, and he didn't play for 6 weeks.
Yep.
I mean, if he plays a full season, he destroys that record. So what's the number you think he can get to this year?
I think 20-plus is definitely in the cards for him. Just obviously depends how he bounced back from the ACL. All reports so far as how he's responded to it. Sounds like he's ready to go, and if that ACL's good, I don't see anything stopping him. I mean, he was incredible last year.
So are you team Justin Bench in center field or team TJ McCants?
I'm team McCants. Give me a little bit more athletic ability out there that can run down a few more balls. I think you'll see a lot of Bench in right field and third base whenever they don't play Reagan Buford there. I think those are 2 spots you see Bench at a lot. It's right and third.
Okay. And in left field, Kevin Graham, he came back. He could have went into the draft last year, came back into school. I'm expecting 15-plus from Kevin this year, home runs.
He's the other one. If you look at it, we could have 2 guys that hit 20 bombs this year because Kevin Graham can absolutely get there. I mean, if you look at the progression he's had from his freshman year all the way up to where he is now, his first 2 years, he couldn't hit a lefty for nothing. And then he changed his approach, was able to drive the ball against lefties too. And I mean, that just light really came on for him last year when he was able to do that. So I'm expecting big things out of him too.
Yeah, and I don't know how old you are, but I'm going to point this out. Kevin Graham has a really, really sweet swing. He reminds me of John Olerud back in his Toronto Blue Jays days with that swing. It just looks like that for me.
It's with a batting helmet on. That's the only difference.
Yeah. But I really like Kevin Graham. So Peyton Chatagnier, he's probably going to end up leading off this year at second base. I think he becomes almost the team energy leader with John Rice Plumlee gone and other players out of the picture. I think he becomes the energy guy for this team.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of been his MO ever since he's gotten on campus, right? I mean, he's the one that's always out there coming up with the celebrations, the end games and double plays and all that. He's really solid defensively. I think he probably will start off hitting lead off. I personally wouldn't hit him there. I would move him a little further down the lineup. I want to get my absolute best bats, the most at bats throughout the game in case something comes up later in the innings. But yeah, he probably does end up leading off, knowing Mike.
And this team hit 85 home runs last year. Think they can make 100?
Yes, they absolutely can. Whether they will or not, who knows? But you look last year, we hit 85 with TJ McCants only having 5 of them, right? I'm huge year at TJ McCants. I think that is the absolute breakout player from last year to this year. Takes a big jump. He probably gets 10, 12 home runs, something like that. So if you get the same production as everybody last year, well, that's already taking you to 92. And like you said, we missed, 5-6 weeks with Elko, whatever it was. There's a lot of home runs that we left out there last year if you get that big jump from McCants like I'm expecting.
Yeah, and who do you think has better power, him or Kemp Alderman?
Kemp Alderman or who? Which one? Elko?
Tim Elko, yeah. I'm not saying now. Tim Elko right now is the better hitter. I'm just talking about straight power. They both get a hold of the pitch as best they can and send it out. Who's got the better power? What's going to happen there?
It's Kemp Alderman without question. I mean, the way if he gets a hold of one, I mean that thing he was hitting it into the parking lot out behind left field last year. You know, I mean that is a tote to get it out there. I mean if he can lay off the breaking balls, that's where he struggled last year. I think he had 11 strikeouts, no walks, wasn't able to lay off that breaking ball. They just kept throwing slider at him. Because if you threw a fastball at him, you knew if he connected with that sucker was going 500 feet. Apparently, he's made some sort of adjustment to throughout fall ball and all that. He had handled it a heck of a lot better than he did last year. So I'm expecting big things out of Kemp Alderman, too. I think he has to take a hold of that DH role for us this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we get out of here, I want to talk a little bit about the pitching staff because that's really what everybody probably wants anyway because we were the number one offense in the SEC last year. What do you know about the pitching staff? Who do we need to look for?
Well, obviously, everything starts with Derek Diamond. You need him to be healthy from the elbow situation he had going through the offseason and all that. You're putting him in on Friday nights. You want him to take a hold of that role. You're not going to get a Gunnar Hoagland, Doug Nikhazy type effort night in, night out of it. You know, he does have good stuff, but those are pretty generational pictures, quite frankly, especially Nikhazy. I'd never seen anything like that. But you need him to lock down Friday night. The Saturday and Sunday ones are the ones that are really going to make or break this season. You've got Gaddis, the kid from A&M Corpus Christi, transferring in, and then Washburn from Oregon State. Those might be the two favorites to take the Saturday, Sunday role. Gaddis had a real good year before his injury. He came back and pitched really good in the conference tournament. I think he had a 2.50-something ERA on the year. Washburn, I've seen people just talk about his stuff and just rave about him. I think he's 91 to 95, 96 on the fastball, real good slider from the right-hand side. The biggest pitcher for us this year, I think, is Jack Doherty. We need him to take over that multi-inning role for us throughout the year. He's got to we don't need to have to force him into the rotation. We need to leave him in the bullpen. That way he can come in the critical moments and give us 1, 2, or 3 innings on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even multiple days when we need him to. And then with Brandon Johnson at the back end, let him be the closer. He had a real good year last year too.
Yeah, I think middle relief is very important because if one of your starters don't have it, you need to have somebody that can eat up some innings before Brandon Johnson's called upon.
Yeah.
But I do have a question. Does it concern you that, like, I don't know, Bianco has this way of making all of his pitchers pitch the same way? So every time they make a change, they just kind of look like the same guys coming in. It might be a righty or a lefty or whatever, but they're going to throw in the low to mid 90s. They're going to try to hit the corners. They're going to pitch the same way. I mean, it doesn't really matter if a pitching change is made because they're kind of the same dude. It's not like Parker Crazy was a little bit different of a right-handed pitcher. Doug Nikhazy absolutely was a different guy. But like Gunnar Hoagland and Derek Diamond, if they changed jerseys, they would pitch them the same way. Did you hear me, Derek?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of similar. I have 4. Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
You got me?
Yeah, I'm here. You got me?
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Hoagland's a big, good slider, especially Diamond. He's got a big breaking pitch, But I'm not ever going to question Mike Bianco in the way he does. I mean, he's got 3 catchers on staff, including himself. They know how to handle a pitching staff. They've proved it over the last 20 years that he's been here at Ole Miss, He knows what he wants, and he knows how to attack the hitters.
Yeah, it just, like I said, it just looks kind of the same to me. But Derek, man, thank you very much for giving us a preview and all that. We're going to try and have you back in on Mondays to talk about the weekend's events. Oh, before we get out of here, what do we need to look for in the Charleston Southern Series?
You got to look forward to Saturday and Sunday, how we handle the pitching those 2 days. That's the biggest question mark on the season as far as I'm concerned. You've got to have that Friday, Saturday, Sunday all locked up going into the SEC play, which I'm sure it'll probably change up unless somebody just comes up and takes a hold of it leading into SEC play. But that's what you look for. You want Saturday and Sunday to get figured out by the time you get there, and it starts next Saturday.
All right. Well, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Tomorrow we will continue our look at the post-signing day spring practice stuff that you need to know about football. We'll continue to lock in about basketball, and we'll talk about baseball as well. So now make the second listens Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Storling. It's free and available on all platforms. Derek, thank you very much, man. Thanks for coming on, and hope to see you again next week.
All right, man. Howdy, Toddy.
Howdy, Toddy.